This is a direct quote from Gandhi. A non-violent person talking like this? Either non-violence has a different definition, or somebody doesn't know what he's talking about. Actually, one person said, it would be difficult to find a more violent person than Gandhi in the history, because most of the violent people declare themselves as violent, except Gandhi, who cheated the entire world, portrayed himself as a pacifist. But in fact, he was a hardcore violent person within himself when it came to protecting his evil Hindu caste system. That is exactly the truth. During his stay in South Africa, I want to go back and read a little more in detail, because I think that's the most important thing. Before that, I want to show this book, Gandhi, Saint or Sinner. This is an important book every African American has to read, because this is an absolute documentation of what he did in South Africa. And I'll make sure Brother Ununi has address, or I will try to get these books and give it to them, because this has got documentation. What he said, when he said in South Africa. This, I'll give the details, because I think best thing, because it is available only in India. It's kind of difficult for you individually write them, so what I'm thinking of doing is to get a bulk and send it to here. It's easier because of the exchange rates and the postal system. Half the time your check won't receive, or they'll take the check and they'll say they never got the checks. Okay. He says, during the Gandhi movie, people forgot Gandhi for a long time. And the Indian government, the Indira Gandhi government, to bring his Gandhi back, their Mahatma back, the movie was completely financed by the Indian government. The script was checked and rechecked by the government of India. And the movie was taken. And one commentary about this movie. While Gandhi is being portrayed as a saintly man, a martyr for whom nonviolence is constant theme and growing virtue, Gandhi was an opportunist, a late blooming pacifist for whom nonviolence was a selective tactic. In fact, during the Kafir wars in South Africa, he was a regular Gangadin who volunteered to organize a brigade of Indians to put down Zulu uprising, and was decorated himself for valor under fire. Oh. You should know that. Yeah. Is it the King Center people can't even get this fact? And I want to quote some of his writing when he was in South Africa. I don't think any of you would want to keep quiet after I read this. He says, ours, that is the Indian upper caste community in South Africa, is one continued struggle sought to be inflicted upon us by the Europeans, who desire to degrade us to the level of the raw Kafir, whose occupation is hunting, and whose sole ambition is to collect a certain number of cattle to buy a wife, and then pass his life in indolence and nakedness. This is Mr. Gandhi's writing when he was in South Africa. A few years back, later, there was a regulation, the arm carrying control the Europeans were implementing. And obviously Europeans wanted to make a rule same for the native blacks and the Indians. He is calling, there is a certain class of bill. He says class 200 makes provision for registration of persons belonging to uncivilized races, meaning the local Africans, resident employed within the barrow. One can understand the necessity of registration of coffees who will not work, But why should registration be required to the Indians? He goes on, in the majority of cases, it compels a native to work for at least a few days a year. Meaning, the locals were lazy, they'll never work. Then he goes on another time. We believe as such in the purity of race as we think as the whites do, by advocating the purity of all races. This is Mr. Gandhi's statement. We believe in purity of races as much as the Europeans believe in purity of races. So far as British Indians are concerned, such a thing in particularly is unknown of mixing races. If there is one thing which the Indians cherishes, when I say Indians, it means upper caste, cherishes more than anything else, more than any other person, it is the purity of the type or race. Aryan. Now, can you call Hitler calling himself Aryan, the Aryan race? You know where he got the Aryan? He went back to India. You know the swastika sign? You know where he borrowed that from? From the Hindu religion. That is a sign of Hindu religion. That's where he borrowed. The Aryan purity and the sign, swastika sign, both came from Hindu religion. And that is what he is re-emphasizing here. So, this book goes through much more in detail about Mr. Gandhi. So you have a non-violent Gandhi and a racist Gandhi, which is really, see, the mistake a lot of our people make, the whole non-violence or violence. When the word violence is used, right away they think as a gun or a dagger or a stick, a blood. No, it's much more than that. You can be a non-violent person. Let me redefine that. You can be an extremely violent person without using a gun or a knife. That is what they have done to the Untouchables. The day a child was born, they said you are untouchable, you are worth for nothing, you have no brain, you can't think, you can't teach, you can't do anything. So he completely destroyed the person. I never had any self-respect. I never loved myself. As a matter of fact, I hated myself when I was a child. That is much more cruel violence than if somebody would have taken a gun and shot me down. People have to understand when the word of violence and non-violence is being used to their advantage. It requires a little bit of education. And sometimes we were denied that education. Or most of the time we were denied the education. But it's about time that we wake up. Because that is where I'm coming back. The Gandhi who killed the Untouchables has the same ancestry as the African Americans of this country. So how can you glorify this man who not only killed the Untouchables in India, but also went against the Africans in South Africa, and then you are glorifying here in this country? Last year, during October, that is the time this guy was born, October some date. The Hindus in this country are very powerful. They have a lot of money. They can buy any politicians. They obviously bought some city council members in Atlanta. So they said, we want to name a street after Gandhi, right next to King Center, with the blessing of Mrs. King. So This brother, African American council brother, fine. He moved a resolution.